Welcome again. It's Alan here. Welcome to one of my showcases. This time it's a 28mm ancient Indian army with figures by First Corps. This is pretty much the army that I painted during the UK's lockdown. It kept me busy, occupied, mentally focused, if you like, during that period. And it's an army that I've really enjoyed painting. It's one of my newer ones. As I talk to you on this video, it's probably, apart from the Etruscans, the army that I painted last. And I'm really pleased with it for lots of reasons. One, I think it's got a really nice, consistent coloration. The Indian troops of the period were well known for wearing these sort of white cotton robe effect, almost sort of kilt or skirt-like arrangements. But outside of that, I've tried to keep the colour palette fairly limited, which I think helps to give you a really sort of consistent theme in the army. Obviously common basing, I've just gone for a standard Jarvis sand and stone mix, but I've tended to keep to reds and blues. Look, reading about armies of the period, and here I'm talking anywhere from about 300 BC to the 1st century AD, we've got a focus on sort of what I would call natural symbols, stars, the moon, that kind of thing. So again, I've tried to keep the banners in keeping with that sort of colour theme, or sorry, that kind of design theme. So if we have a little look at what we've got here, starting over here on the army's left, we've got some cavalry, some loose order infantry, and then as you can see, and we'll have a look at these in a moment, we've got some chariots in the background there. And in front of them, two solid blocks of archers, 40 figures strong each. Now, what I wanted to say to you was that these banners actually use Sanskrit. So Indian armies of the time would have had a language that has a modern sort of successor. And what I've done is kindly ask a colleague at work, Shiv, and thanks for this, to actually translate some phrases into Sanskrit. I think actually it was his wife who kindly assisted in this, so that the army's banners are actually as close as I can make them to ancient Indian text. And I'll just, if there is anyone out there with the ability to see read Sanskrit, let's just have a quick look at some of the banners, and hopefully to those with an educated eye that's beginning to make some sense. That theme has been carried out throughout the entire army. For those of you who are interested, these banners I made on Publisher, Microsoft Publisher. If you've got the tool set, it comes as a free component, and I just simply sized rectangles to actually match the profile of the banners, and then I put little tags on the actual image so that I could wrap them around. And they're sort of reminiscent of Roman sort of standards in that regard, but you shouldn't have too many problems if you want to try and recreate it. Then what I did was, on fairly decent paper, just printed it out on a colour printer, and where I needed to, added some touch-ups or some shading for effect. So I'm really pleased with that overall impression that I've been able to create. So if we move on to some of the more, shall we say, elite troops in the army, let's have a quick look at these guys. So as far as the chariots go, again, same kind of consistent use of colour. I've put some different designs on the sides of the chariots. These are so obviously 6-man crew, and if you use them in any sort of war game system, they're going to take a lot of your points pretty quickly, but I just think it was really fun. One of the reasons I chose this army was because it's got a lot of different things in it, and it's something I'd never really painted before in terms of this sort of area of geography, or this period and this location. And I was also had to do a bit of research in terms of colours and equipment, etc. So that was quite a bit of fun, just getting that right. We pull out some of these elephants. I've done similar kind of thing with the elephants, really, in that the jury's out as to how much coloration was placed on the actual elephant itself, but everyone agrees that these cloths that were placed over the elephant were highly decorated. So I don't sometimes find it very difficult to come up with designs. Something that I think is a nice blend between that visual impression that you get, but also doesn't look a little bit sort of silly and artificial. So again, I'm really pleased with the sort of balance that I've been able to create here. This is the leader figure, which I've modelled on King Porus himself, and hopefully the Sanskrit banner there says something appropriate. I know what it says, or I think I know what it says, because I asked for it to be translated. But if you want to have a little go yourself and put some comments on that, it'd be quite a bit of fun. I'll just put these guys back, give you a view on the overall impression that the army creates. So I painted 120 archers, 16 of the loose order infantry. I painted another 16 of these infantry guys behind, and they are a little bit different in that these are armed with the traditional Indian sword, which is a two-handed weapon, and they're armed with javelins as well, so they're quite a useful troop type to have in the army. We move over to the left here, or the army's right flank. Excuse me, I'm going to come quickly. You'll see that I've got some more light cavalry, and then the main shock units in the army are the 8 elephants that I've painted up. So 2 generals linked to the 2 units of elephants. And again, for those of you who sort of care about these things, if you put an army together with a decent number of elephants and some chariots, you're going to run out of points fairly quickly. Now maybe that's a good thing, because it takes a bit of a load off in terms of painting, but obviously just be aware of that if you're trying to create a balanced army. Just a word on those who are interested, the elephants that I painted are actually resin, and this is the first time I've painted these sort of resin models. I also experimented with an airbrush to try and get some effects, and it worked quite well on the elephants. I didn't really find it useful at all on the infantry, so went back to a sort of traditional painting method. But here I was able to undercoat them with an airbrush in black, and then put a few grey washes on. But then elephants aren't really grey, so what I've done is to try and put a brown wash over the whole animal, and I'm reasonably pleased with the effect that it's created. Certainly from a distance, visually these guys look really good. And again, I'm interested in what the whole thing looks like on the tabletop as much as picking up an individual figure. Same sort of things apply really. If anyone's interested in the army, wants to have a chat to me about what I've done and how I've done it, feel free. Thoroughly recommend First Corps figures. The service is great. They have a unique style, so just make sure you're happy with that. But yeah, the guys are great. They turn up at various UK trade shows, and I've had no problems at all in ordering from them. Thoroughly recommended. Again, if you like the videos, please click the old subscribe button. If you've got any questions, let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. There's a few more to show you, and hopefully you'll keep watching. Thanks very much.